Hello everyone, you're watching sqadia.com, and today our lecture topic is the autonomic nervous and system and the visceral reflexes, and we are on the section 1 of this lecture topic. What we will be discussing in this lecture topic is what are the general properties of ANS and how the autonomic nervous system is actually organized in our body. Autonomic nervous system and the endocrine system control the internal environment of the body, but there are two fundamental differences between them. Endocrine system releases hormones which slowly act over the different areas and their effector organs and bring about a change, while in the autonomic nervous system there's quite rapid response as compared to the endocrine system. The autonomic nervous system, like the somatic nervous system, has an afferent, which is actually the bringing in the information from the organ. Then there's a connector neuron in which there is a synapses in the nervous spinal cord, and there's an afferent neuron which exits the spinal cord. And in case of a sympathetic nervous system, it goes to the ganglia. In case of a parasympathetic nervous system, it goes to the organ itself, and then it synapses in the visceral ganglia. The control exerted by the autonomic nervous system is extremely rapid. Large collection of afferent and efferent fibers and their associated ganglia form autonomic plexuses in the thorax, abdomen, and pelvis. And we'll be discussing the thoracolumbar outflow of the sympathetic nervous system and craniosacral outflow of the parasympathetic nervous system. We will all be going through these ganglia and how they are formed in our body. This is a diagram which shows predominantly how the parasympathetic and sympathetic actually function in our body. The autonomic nervous system is composed of two things, the parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous system. What are the functions? The parasympathetic is mainly the craniosacral outflow, that is the mainly from the cranium, and there are certain nerves which have a parasympathetic nuclei, and then mainly it is the sacral plexus from which the parasympathetic outflow is going on. While in case of sympathetic, it is mainly the thoracolumbar outflow and sympathetic chain, which actually the fibers going from the spinal cord go and synapse in the ganglia, which form a sympathetic chain, which is a paravertebral chain, and then from there onward, the postganglionic fibers go and synapse to the target organs. So what do parasympathetic sympathetic nervous system do? If you are talking about the pupils, both affect the pupils. Parasympathetic dilates pupil, parasympathetic constricts pupil, and sympathetic dilate pupil. In case there is increased saliva production in parasympathetics, they reduce heart rate in constricts bronchi. They stimulate the activity of digestive organ and stimulate the activities of pancreas, stimulates the activities of gallbladder, and they constrict urinary bladder. They stimulate erection and genitals of man and women. In case of a sympathetic nervous system, they dilate pupil, inhibits saliva production, dilates bronchi, raises the heart rate, inhibits the activity of digestive system, the pancreas and the gallbladder, stimulates adrenal medulla to release adrenaline and noradrenaline, which are actually the catecholamines, relaxes urinary bladder, stimulates orgasm in genitals of the man and woman. Now, this is actually a diagram which is showing the how autonomic nervous system actually functions. It's not independent, it is actually controlled by the brain itself, and you can appreciate that there is actually, if we take the example of this diagram, there's a cardiac regulatory center which is present in the medulla oblongata, and once the fibers which are arising from there, they come down and synapse in the spinal cord. From here onward, then there are preganglionic fibers. These is why they are called the preganglionic fibers, because as they're going to the sympathetic chain, which is a paravertebral, so these are preganglionic sympathetic fibers. From there onwards, the fibers which have arisen, they go into a ganglia which is lying just adjacent to the vertebra. There they synapse with the neurons. From there onward, then postganglionic fiber actually reach the heart. So this is actually an example of, this is the corticospinal tract, the different tracts which are coming, all the upper motor neurons are actually coming down to the spinal cord. From there are rising of preganglionic sympathetic fibers, then the synapse, and then from there onwards, it's actually the postganglionic fibers and neurons which are going towards the effector organs. That is how the autonomic nervous system, whether it's parasympathetic or sympathetic, brings about a change in the human body. As I've already told you, it is divided into two parts, the sympathetic and the parasympathetic, and as emphasized earlier, consists of both afferent and efferent fibers. This division between the sympathetic and parasympathetic is made on the basis of anatomical differences, differences in the neurotransmitters, and differences in the physiological effects. For example, in case of parasympathetic, there is a release of certain neurotransmitters, while in case of sympathetic, it's always the adrenaline and noradrenaline, while it's others in case of parasympathetics. By this, we have covered the first section of this lecture. There we've discussed the general properties of ANS. We discussed how it is organized and how it is actually controlled by the brain, and what are the different effects of sympathetic and parasympathetic on our body. Thank you very much. Keep watching sqadia.com.